Hello and welcome to the Pro Detailer Magazine podcast. It has been a while,
That's a theme song I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, only in my nightmares. We decided it was time to do a quick sort of pre-release issue 18 podcast thing, and we're sat here after what has been quite a testing year, has to be said.
It's carried on going. We haven't had any sun either, which has kind of ruined the entire year for me.
Yeah, we had no summer.
It was a Thursday. There was a little bit, but...
Oh, when was that?
Back in like June, I think.
May, June, yeah.
It's been horrible.
That's been pretty horrible. And in fact, weather has been the source of many trials and tribulations of late.
I blame Liz Truss.
Oh, well,
it's all part of that bloody mini budget she did last year.
I blame all Tories. But anyway, the upshot was our office got flooded back in October the 20th. And it had half a foot of water in it and destroyed pretty much everything.
I mean, it didn't just have water in it.
Yeah, we had some floating objects and flotsam and jetsam. As a result of around in this rural area, lots of people have septic tanks, and some of them breached and then emitted their lovely stuff up, and then came through the garden into the office. So that was fun. Other developments, well, we're now sat in my front room because obviously there is no office.
So I'm quite finished drying it out yet.
No, it's sucking 400 and something quid a month in electricity on sucking crap out, so that's fun. So if you do hear, we are, as a result, surrounded by dogs and other bits and bobs that you normally get in a household. So if you do hear barking stuff, that is what it is. We haven't captured them. They are here and I can't get rid of them.
And it's only because you don't want to turn the heating on.
I won't turn the heating on. That costs money, and at the moment that don't work. So anyway, we've sort of got by, and to our amazement, we've managed to get 18 out to the printers, pretty much on time. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe a week later than we have done.
Yeah, we normally do about a week earlier, but that kind of takes into account how long we were down when the flood came out.
The flood is limited, and also, to be fair, we were originally, when we were planning this issue out in September, we were planning on going to Poland, we were planning on going to Italy, we were planning on going to lots of places that we didn't. So then we ended up going to various other places, which we will talk about shortly. Yeah. Given we've about turned on stuff, I think we're. I mean, I'm not one for giving oneself a pat on the shoulder or anything, but we've got.
I can't do that anymore. I get cramp in my shoulder.
So it's all fun. But issue 18, as you can imagine, will kick off with the CCA, the Car Care Adventures.
It kicks off with news, actually.
No, you're damn right. Absolutely.
To be fair, there's a front cover as well and contents page, but they're fairly generic. No, we've got a really good cover this time.
I think it's my favourite. I hate to say it, but I love yellow.
Mark for anniversary.
Well, you see, no, cars. Apologies to the owner of the car, but cars not my. I mean, it's not golf, but it's the colours. I'm into colours, and it's yellow, and that's cool.
It's a Porsche yellow.
Is it?
Yes.
Ah. Well, I like that
so,
yellow.
That's what we've written.
That's what it said.
That's what you got from Joe.
That's he would know. He painted it. And originally I went and did the shoot down in Wales, not Wales, and I'd done it all very bright white colours with the yellow in the middle, and I thought I like it, but it's not quite there. And then we both decided, because we did have an option for a front cover that was so close but didn't happen, so it was our fallback. And then Ian, you turned the background kind of black, basically.
Yes, kind of inverting a lot of the colours in there with the magic of Lightroom. But no, I don't want to seem like it's an over-process, because it wasn't originally a very nice, very good photo.
Oh, well, thank you.
But we just made it better, as with so many things.
So that was, I do like the cover. I think my favourite otherwise is 9, which is the BMW in, it was weird how the front covers are with cars that I'm not really a big fan of, but it was BMW.
Isn't it weird how none of the front covers are yours?
What do you mean?
None of the front cover cars are yours.
Oh no, they're none of mine. No, well, no one in their right mind would put an old Subaru on the front of a magazine.
I thought you meant on the driveway.
I did actually, in fairness, I did an April Fool's this year, which was Uncrashable 3, when it was just about to be stripped down by Toby for vinyl wrapping, and did a joke front cover saying that it won Salon Privé. And I did get one message to Paige asking, how do you enter your car to Salon Privé?
Was it not Salon Privé serving you legal notice? How did your car survive all the flood, by the way? How well?
The waters started rising in the morning. We were supposed to be up at UKDA having a meeting with various people, and I basically called, sorry guys, currently got an issue. And bear in mind, we've had floods here before. They go into the garden, that's fine. And then the neighbours who've been here for about 1 million years said, "Oh, you don't need to worry till it gets in the driveway." So then it got in the driveway, and the first thing I moved was Uncrashable 3, because obviously that's my most valuable possession. Not valuable monetarily, although it's probably close, but
it's most susceptible to rust.
No, it's not too bad. The Gen 3 is terrible. That's off the road because the rust has got to the seatbelt mounting points, which is slightly awkward. That's Boris the Outback, which will return with a manual gearbox at some point, maybe, I hope, with a low range. So I moved Uncrashable up the drive a little bit, and it makes the drive sound really big, but there's just a little bit around the side that I've been hiding him away from all the thieves that exist around here, because, Swindonia. And then it started rising more, so I moved him onto a bit of grass, did some impromptu off-roading, much to the entertainment of all the local villagers who are also out in the street watching their houses sort of slowly descend under the floodwater, which was tragic. And then moved...
well, they need something to laugh at.
Yeah, it was...
bit of joy for the village.
Well, there's like a, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid who's got a tractor, like a proper yard tractor, that he hurtles up and down just for fun most of the time. And he's got a PTO that he runs pumps off, so he comes and basically offers to pump out stuff with his tractor. And anyway...
Sorry, PTO?
Power takeoff.
Oh, okay.
Spinning axle thing that you can attach things to. And anyway, so he said, "Oh, I could tow you on there because you'll never make it up there." At which point, my intended approach, which was slow and ginger, so as not to do any damage, bear in mind it's lowered, any damage to the splitter and all that side, was just to creep up there slowly. For fear of having to be towed in a baby tractor by a child, I decided that speed and power in a Clarkson Esquire was the way forward, and basically rammed it with great speed and power. It survived. I think some of the rear diff might still be in the grass, but it survived.
But it wouldn't be the most embarrassing thing that's ever towed your Subarus.
No, it really wouldn't.
Renault van, wasn't it?
Lots of things have towed that car.
Yeah.
Lots of things. But then it's towed quite a lot of things in its previous life. But let's not go down that hole.
So the Audi, all okay?
I moved it once, thinking it'd be all right, and then it got up to the door sills, and I missed it by about 5 minutes, I think, and it started getting inside, and I've already got mould issues in some of the leather door cardy bits that it's got. The mould just kind of reappears, and then some Egypt in a van decided to speed. He was a policeman, actually. He was a police van. Speed through the village, making a bow wave that then just pushed it that much over, and that's when it went over the number plate at the front. I thought, right, we've got to make moves. So I fired up the V8, fired up the Quattro, and then very slowly drove it to the bridge over the motorway to try and store it there. And then the motorway shut, so that bridge then suddenly had thousands of cars trying to get shortcuts through, and I was just sat there with a scowl and a beard on, trying to make sure nobody would come close to my car. And then the Fiesta van, that did fine. And the electric, turns out electric's pretty good in water because they're so heavy they don't float, and they don't have any sort of suction or exhaust or anything to worry about. So that went out last, and that pretty much pushed, that was at number plate level, and it was fine.
I think I said to you at the time, electrics are always going to be really good in not complete submersion, but going through deep puddles, except for the Tesla, which the panel gaps would be the biggest worry on.
Well, at least none of us bought... Oh, yeah, that was the other thing that happened. Pretty much in the same par of tragedy.
I'm sure we've spoken about this before. I did buy a... Yeah, no, we said in the last... we said in the last magazine.
It feels still recent. When I see it, I think, oh, crap, the HMRC have arrived.
Yeah, but you don't see it for very long.
No, and I never hear it.
Recap on the cars, cover's done now.
Interesting news. We were just voicing this because we mentioned how Starnagloss have moved to a very large new factory. I think I might be slightly in trouble with Cav because I suggested he might be 5'9", I estimated his height, so that you could get an idea of scale. And in retrospect, he might be a little bit more than 5'9". But I know he's not as tall as me. I always look down on him. So anyway,
I can't think of anything to compare it to.
Well, PJ, but then PJ is an inch taller than me, and Cav always looks tiny next to PJ. But then so does any Homo sapien. But also we failed to mention that Dodo have moved as well. So yes. I think I accidentally said that.
And Crankalicious,
and the whole
shebang,
empire.
Because they had loads of units on that industrial estate there.
It was an empire, yeah, and some were rented out, some are owned, some at least. It's complicated.
Have they found somewhere for the ambulance to sit while they carry on?
I'm sure they have a secret storage place, because a number of times I ask if we can go and do a shoot with that awesome Saab, or the Ambulo, or even the Berlingo Speed V6 thingamajiggles, and the only offer I get is Cav's bloody BMW, which I've repeatedly said it just breaks my camera lenses. I took some nice shots of it in for the last issue, And that's kind of, I feel, all one should have to do when it comes to E46 BMW.
It's nice enough, but it's not worth a 2.5-hour drive.
Yeah. All the fake carbon fibre. Anyway, so it's banter. We mutually respect each other's cars, although I don't think Cav even seen the Scoob. It was just a little blue dot in the distance. So yeah, that was one of the news things. There were various other bits of news, mixed sort of interest. Kochemi in Colour Lock is an interesting takeover.
Yes, Koch taken over the German leather repair brand.
Some disties are going, aren't they? So Swissfax disties selling up shop.
Yeah, they're changing over. I don't know if they've found a new one yet, but that's something that's happening in the new year. IGL changed over.
That's gone to Scotland or something, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, they moved up from down south.
Because I think it's brought into Holland and then sub-disted out from there.
Yeah, that's a whole. I think that ages ago I was in.
Well, you're a Kenzo master.
I used Kenzo at one point, and that was a big thing at one point where they was bringing over into Holland and then bringing it over into the UK from there. So there were actually middlemen taking extra money for quite an expensive product already. But
yeah, well, post B word, it makes sense to come straight. So yeah. Anyway, so that was the news, and then
there are other things in the news, but
we're not going to give it all away. We expect that $7.99. So the first stop was Waxstock, which was so. This year we had a day and a half, and it was a different format. And I, for one, liked it because it meant there was more setup time for exhibitors, including the Friday, and the Saturday afternoon was kind of a bit quieter and calmer, and kind of you felt like you got more things done. And they were kind of mixed on the ground, so to speak, getting kind of people's feelings. It was a mixed reception. I mean, what did you think of it?
I'm just trying to remember. I did come up on the Saturday, didn't I?
Yeah, you made an appearance.
Yeah, I came on the Saturday for a bit. It was much calmer. Not as much. I think we've said this before. Not as much sort of B2B professional stuff going on as I think a lot of people envisaged it might be.
Yeah.
Did it detract from the Sunday? No, I don't think so. I think the Sunday was just as busy as ever, and I think everybody either did 2 days or just the one day on the Sunday. But yeah, like I think we say in our roundup, it was a pivot. It was one way to go. I think there is a lot more that they could potentially do with it.
There's lots of scope, lots and lots of scope. Particularly, the most of the aggro I was getting was from the kind of professional crowd. Now, half of them are kind of grumpy old people who will complain about everything because they can't say nice things. But half of them did have legitimate points, I felt. And so if they were to make like the Saturday afternoon pro only, that would be kind of cool.
It doesn't even have to be pro only, but just having a set area agenda that professionals can directly benefit from. Even there's a massive auditorium underneath that.
I've heard of this place, but like Narnia, I've never technically been there.
Well, just underneath where Waxstock Hotel, there's this sort of auditorium educational area that could be purposed for talks going on throughout the afternoon.
That'd be cool.
That kind of thing. It doesn't. Yeah, it's going to add a little bit of cost, but that will be absorbed, I imagine, by the exhibitors there.
Yeah. Yeah, and
that would add a lot of value.
It would, and now the ticket cost is up to £25 a pop, which is in line with plenty of other shows, but it's still quite a lot of money. And point out there is free parking and stuff like that, which at the NEC I think parking is 16 or 18 quid now just for going in, which is a pain in the arse for me. When I going in, I've got 2 hours to take photos at a show. You know, first of all, you're basically in Birmingham, which is disappointing, and then you're paying so much money to leave your car 16 miles away from where you need to get to.
Basically in Coventry.
Yeah, it's bad. But anyway, so that was Waxstock. We've done a nice big feature on it. We've gone through, featured cars. There's a Beamer you'll notice before, which is a 540i AC Schnitzer belonging to Dan Wood, which won the kind of the main competition. I'd like to point out that there was also a lovely Subaru there, which I believe came second in the competition and owned by the same chappie who did well last year as well. So, just want to point out
once again, Subaru finishing slightly behind a BMW.
Oh, I've got a comment there, but I can't make it on a family thing. So we went even further north, didn't we? We took an aeroplane, despite nearly getting electrocuted by thunder and lightning.
That was my breaking my duck. That was the first ever time in my 13 years on this planet that I've ever actually been to Scotland.
It was weird, wasn't it?
I've got as far as the wall before and stopped. Went, well, it's here for a reason. I've got my passport with me. Looks a bit cold.
See, well, I'm regularly in Scotland. I love Scotland. I particularly like it above the kind of Glasgow, Edinburgh central belt. It's the Cairngorms and Inverness is pretty, but strange enough, I very rarely get an excuse to go up there. So Edinburgh's nice enough, though. The shuttle from the airport's nice, but we didn't.
The bit of Edinburgh that we saw, the sort of getting to the airport and then driving 5 minutes away from the airport.
We'll take it from me. I've walked around the whole town.
Nice enough.
So, yeah, it is. It's lovely. And that was for Cleanfest, which is like, it's kind of a detailing show, but it's also it's more about detailed cars than detailing cars.
Modified.
It's modified,
but not even so much about the modifying to make it go faster, but modifying it aesthetically.
Yeah. And it was interesting. It was a first show I've been to where people are allowed to walk around with cans of beer and dogs and animals and stuff like that.
I thought it was a really good show.
Yeah, it was a nice atmosphere.
It was definitely worth the day there and back.
Yeah, it was a long day, mind. But yes, it was. Although EasyJet decided to get very expensive at that time for some reason. You know what flight prices are going up and down like a yo-yo, and we managed to go when it was high. Mm-hmm. I think it was still cheaper than using a V8 petrol, but only just. But
really good atmosphere there, and lots of little clubs exhibiting, as well as some really interesting mods in there as well. I really like the little Bedford van still.
That was cool, a little pickup Bedford with, and the other one that reminded me is I used to have a 306D turbo, and I took it to a Koss. Who tuned it at vast expense to go ever so slightly less slowly. And they were big in the max power days when I was young, and I want to say hip, but that never really happened. And they had a 306 seat saloon, but they turned it into a 3-door, and I think anybody who's of my generation will remember it. It was a kind of a limey green colour. And I'd never seen that car in the flesh, and finally I did manage to see that car. And they had a couple other like 206s and then.
Oh, these are the ones outside on the field.
Yes. Yeah.
There were quite a few there that I remember from sort of max power shoots.
Yeah. Well, I think they've still got the stock of most of those show cars.
Of them.
Yeah. No, they were the real deal. Some of them.
I remember when magazines were cool.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
We'll never do that again. So anyway, after Scotland, we made our. Well, actually, I went down to Kent and covered the Lake Country kind of opening day at the same place that they've been for a while, but now it's fully Lake Country'd without the kind of the KDS undertones. So that was a fun afternoon. They had of particular note was a fake AC Cobra. It was a DAX or something like that, but he had a monstrous LS motor in it and did the most irresponsible but very cool burnout I've ever seen. And it was hilarious because there were people there with their pops and bangs, 140s and little, girl cars, Golf Rs and stuff. And this hairy grey man comes along with this Cobra and basically, it was insane. It was insane.
You try and do burnouts in Fritz.
No, that wouldn't be a good idea with the four-wheel drive.
No, wouldn't work.
No, and he's only 360 odd brakes, so that probably wouldn't happen. But we did that, and then we did our first foreign foray, which was your responsibility, really.
Where's that?
Well, when we were in Switzerland.
Oh, Switzerland. I can't remember where we're up to in the travels.
Well, yes. So, I mean, it depends whether you consider Scotland as foreign or not.
Yes, but that's no, anyway.
Yes, no. His home address.
So back in March time when I went over to the detailing show over in Tor. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we'd heard of Diamond Protect before. They'd send us some products a couple of issues back, but didn't actually know anything about them. So I finally managed to bump into Roberto, the boss over at the Swiss manufacturing company that has pioneered this enriched diamond nano powder, sort of effectively replacing the SiO2 or graphene, depending on where you stand in the world, in ceramic coatings as sort of the active ingredient. So, chatting to him, and the more I spoke to him, the more interesting I found him and the company. So we saw him again at Waxstock, and we were saying, well, we need to come over and learn a bit more about this, see what it's about, see if there is anything to it, effectively, or if it's just another one of these cycles. He
was a very charming man. He speaks 6 languages, is Italian, spent a lot of his time working in Russia, and I think sometime in the States and England. He came to England, I think.
Kazakhstan he spent a lot of time in.
Yeah, he was a well-travelled fellow. I mean, I consider myself fairly travelled. I've been to Basingstoke.
Because he used to, one of his things, he used to deal with weapons weapons contracts.
Yes.
And would basically have to go in between all these NATO countries negotiating with their foreign office ministers.
Details were shaky, but I get the impression there are some countries that are not allowed to supply certain things to other countries, but they're all allowed to supply and buy to third parties. So.
Well, it's not even that. It's things like the Eurofighter, where we manufacture some of the bits, France manufactures some of the bits, Spain manufactures some of the bits, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So, but in order to sell the Eurofighter to Sudan or something like that, he'd have to get all of these other countries to sign off on the bit of paper. It's not just a one central Eurofighter incorporated that can sign it.
That's it, and it's like the tanks going to Ukraine as well. The what do you call it, Leopard 2s. You had to get permission off Germany, even though it would say French or Polish tanks. They have to go back to Germany.
Well,
and say,
it was Switzerland that wanted to send over the Leopard tanks, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, I know plenty of people wanted to, but they all had to seek. They were bought on the basis that you couldn't just put them on Auto Trader.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because I quite fancy a Leopard 2.
It's kind of Ferrari's business model as well. You have to get permission from them and things.
Yeah, you can get in trouble for well, you can get in trouble. We won't talk, in fact, because we can get in so much trouble just mentioning things.
Leopard, the Ferrari of the tank world.
There you go. Phew. So yeah, we went over to Switzerland. It was an interesting trip.
It was really good. Flying over to Geneva, lovely part of the world, although we couldn't see most of it because it was foggy. Mm-hmm. Got picked up by Roberto, went and had a tour of their lab, saw some coatings being made live in front of our eyes and bottled. So we've got the whole process down in photographs for once, which is nice.
Yeah.
Which we haven't actually had before. We've seen it being made, but we haven't been able to photograph it for whatever reason and everything. These guys are very open about it, but showing us all of the enriched diamond powder, how it's made and everything. And there's a lot of really interesting tech there.
Yeah, there's substance behind it. It's not... Because, the only other diamond thing that I've seen in coatings is the latest CarPro Dimas thing, which I don't know very much about. No, it's called D-Cores, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dimas was something else. That was an old... wasn't that an old...
I'm sure that was a coating.
Ceramic one. There was one ceramic with an S. Anyway, back in the day. There's genuine stuff going on there. We haven't tested the coatings properly at all yet, so we're not saying they're the best thing since sliced bread, but we will be putting them on a car.
We've seen the effect of the raw ingredients and we've seen that enriching the diamond nano powder does make it extremely hydrophobic, and if you follow the actual science behind it, it is effectively the first super hydrophobic coating that we've actually seen on the market, over 120 degree contact angle. They don't make that claim because they can't guarantee that's going to be replicated in every single scenario, but the powder itself is 140 something degrees, and once it's put into the coating, that drops down to about 132 degrees, so they've still got 12 degrees to play with before it stops becoming super hydrophobic. So you've got a really good performing coating from that. Yeah,
the powder's insane. You once it's been enriched, you literally put a water droplet and it'll encapsulate a water droplet, so you end up with a spherical water droplet that's like a little bead or a marble.
And it's not just the filling that they've spent a lot of time with, it's the solvents they use, so they flash off quicker. You can turn around card much quicker as a result, so they flash off the cure time. They can go straight outside within about an hour rather than 24 hours of indoor curing time. So yeah, interesting stuff there.
Yeah, no.
After that, I went to
Ireland, which I've been wanting to do for ages. So I used to spend most summers in Ireland since the late 80s, and for various reasons I don't anymore, sadly. But it was nice to get back to Cork, and we've got a distributor out there, which is washme.ie, Pascal from Weiler, who in fact is Swiss, of all things. And he is the sort of main labo man out there, but he also does lots of other products, sort of poker and ADBL and stuff like that. And he introduced us to Dan DM Detailing, and so we went around the shop. Then we went over to DM Detailing, who's in County Waterford, I want to say, or Wexford. Oh, one of the two. But he's about an hour. Drogheda.
Yeah.
Drogheda. No, that was the other one who was Flawless. It started in Drogheda and then went up. Yeah. Anyway, and we also went to what was ostensibly a hand car wash, but that had also got a detailing bay and was doing higher end work as well. And basically, the whole idea was to get a narrative on the detailing industry in Ireland at all levels. We've talked to an enthusiast, we talked to a top end detailer, we talked to a detailer out in the sticks, we talked to this hand car wash sort of multi-purpose site, and obviously a reseller or distributor in the form of Pascal. So we've created quite a big report support, frankly.
And it's quite interesting that we've never really covered Ireland that much before, considering that they are our sort of closest,
nearest and dearest. Yeah.
And the differences in the detailing scene out there are quite apparent. You know, you do say a couple of guys themselves said they're probably about 5 or 6 years behind the rest, the mainland UK.
I would say what was interesting is a lot of them didn't necessarily regard UK at the pinnacle. Pascal, for one, was like, well, Germany's leading the way, Italy and the Scandies behind that, and then the UK behind that, and Ireland behind that. So it's very much we're kind of dropping back. I think that's one.
It's just apathy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there is an element. Well, yeah. So, and also pre-B word, everybody in Ireland used to buy from the UK, and now they're all buying from mainland Europe. So things take longer, and it's sort of more of a fussle. And I think it's just generally harder. But for Pascal, it's quite good because he's able to get in all these things in bulk, and is a kind of a one-stop shop for pretty much anything and everything you'd need. So yeah, no, it's an interesting article, and it's nice to kind of get have the opportunity really to do a big scale article on something kind of grand topic stuff. It's a bit different from what we've done before. But after we did Ireland, I went off to get the cover shot because our initial cover shot idea was...
Well, it was still in transit, but we were going to see what we could get over at your next stop, which was Autoglans.
Yeah. So the difference between Wales and Herefordshire in places is difficult to tange, if you see what I mean.
It's an accent, pretty much.
Well, I love both, obviously, but yeah, I managed to get a bit lost, and then and I was in the Sparky car as well, so range was very, very limited, and started realising I was going to get savaged by sheep on a hillside, got to
be excited about that.
Yes, after the arousal had calmed down. But anyway, went to go and see Autoglans, which was run by Joe Pritchard, and it's been running for quite a while. We've done like a little history of Autoglans and stuff like that in there, but it's a quiet brand. It doesn't shout, doesn't have a cav or an equivalent sort of social media guru. It doesn't like get involved too much with groups, even though there is kind of an association with perhaps the biggest Facebook detailing group. But the kind of the line to it, they just carry on doing what they want to do, which is make good products and make it available, and kind of a no-nonsense brand in that respect. And we've tested a couple of their things over the years. And
when they won the megatest?
They did win
They co-won the glass cleaning megatest with Garage Therapy.
That's
both
true.
Very good cleaners in their own right.
Yeah, and they were different as well. The GT one is more flexible, but I felt that in the right conditions, the Moonshine was superior in certain situations. So it was
depending on what you're trying to clean off.
And it smells like good enough to drink. But don't drink it because it gives you the shits. We did that, and that was really nice to go around there. And they're proper petrol heads. I mean, they're not necessarily the sort of petrol heads you want to mix with. They're vagists mostly. Lots of vaggy things, but lots of interesting cars. And they've got their own spray booth, so they actually do proper work there.
I think you find the terms vagynists.
Vagynists. But
they have a meeting called Vaginia.
There were in their defence, there were some other decent, interesting cars, and their new project kind of show car for this coming year is a Mark II Golf that's currently white, so that'll be fun. I do quite like a Mark II Golf, quite.
It's better than Mark III.
Yeah,
I haven't met many people that go, "Oh, Mark III Golf."
Well, you did.
No, I'd have
when I first met you,
no,
you had a black. Was yours a 4?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh, the
Mark anniversary.
Oh yeah, of course. Yes, yeah. All right. Pipe down. Well, that was.
That's why I was quite excited about it. Kind of went, oh, I had one of those, but I painted it Battleship Grey.
Yeah. God, that car was terrible. So anyway, that's kind of the end of our CCA saunters, and then before the break, we'll go briefly through the new products. Mm-hmm. So as an overall thing, I have to say, bit disappointed.
It was like getting blood out of a stone with new products this time around, wasn't it?
It was difficult getting
not just actually getting the products, but getting information on them, finding interesting new products as well, because there's a lot of V2s, V5s, rehashes and things like that. Not saying that there's nothing new about them, but there does seem to have been a drop-off in innovation in detailing products in the last year.
Yeah, exactly that. And
whether that's down to sort of financial availability, people are holding off on new research and development, which is strange because you get tax breaks on that.
I think there's an element of post-COVID, there was a rush, and then this is the lull slightly after the rush. Also, it's always disappointing in the winter issue because they release all these things at SEMA, and so we get to see all the new things, and then we don't actually get them in our hands.
Yes, they don't actually exist in any other country apart from the prototype that they've taken over to SEMA in the locked flight, the Pelican cases.
Exactly. And I did this. We've got a proper article on SEMA, and we still unable to go to SEMA. But the I involved. I think I watched 22 hours of video footage from various sources about SEMA this year, and so I learned a lot.
You didn't accidentally misspell that, did you? God, there's a lot of plumbers over there.
Oh dear, I blame tiredness. And anyway, so we got lots of details and the lowdown and stuff there, and it was great. What I liked about the SEMA this year was the number of new brands that we know. So Labo Cosmetica, for example, went over there for the first time, and they were putting there. And I'm trying to think of another one, but my mind goes blank.
I don't understand this obsession SEMA has with putting all the newbies in like a quarantine hall their first year.
I don't know.
If nothing else, you want guys that are spending out the money to come over there for the first time to have a really, really good experience. So you think put them in with everybody else, not in the holding pen, effectively, which is the North Hall.
But if you're a regular SEMA goer and you just want to see the newbies, then you just go to that hall and your job done. Because bear in mind, the whole kind of area of SEMA is
but then all the
huge.
All the existing guys don't get the exposure to that.
Well, exactly. It's a no-win.
It's a very strange rule, is all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's particularly right or wrong, but it's just odd.
It is odd. But it was interesting, and watching those. So we've got a report on that and all the new stuff that has come out. And in the States, a lot of it was going to be available in kind of Q1, Q2, 24, which means that over in kind of the rest of the world will probably be 6 months later. So maybe ready for the next season.
It was quite interesting as well how many companies kind of hijacked the SEMA bug, if you like, to launch their own new products without actually going to SEMA, because you had new product releases from
it was Geon and CarPro.
CarPro were the two big ones. Very interesting products as well they've got coming out. Geon have redone all of their bottles now. They've got a couple of new products. They've also got some accessories and masking tape, which I've only seen a
CGI of.
Yeah, CGI thing. I'm not entirely convinced it exists, but it's in there just in case it does.
It's clever though. The annoying thing is I presumed they'd be there, so I spent ages going through videos specifically looking for CarPro and Geon, and I only realised that no, they were basically kind of pretending, saying, oh, for SEMA releases we're doing this. We're not actually there because we don't want to spend £100 billion having a stand, but we'll kind of give the impression. So yeah, we did. But in terms of the new products, I mean, we tested some. There was none in terms of the software, what I call, as in the liquid, the wet stuff, that really got me very excited.
We had quite an interesting three-way citrus test.
Yeah, that was good.
Which was good because it gave genuinely three different options rather than saying, oh, this one's the best. We tested mild deep versus ECA cleaning versus gloss fuel, and they both offer different things. And you can find out what those are by reading the magazine.
Yeah.
No. To be fair, they there were differences in terms of the appeal for them. So you got a bit more of a value for money versus a bit stronger chemistry in there for slightly more effective cleaning, but with a bit more risk in there. And kind of a middle ground, if you like. So.
It was interesting. We did a couple other. We did a tire twin test and stuff like that. So yeah, it was cool, but there was nothing that I kind of jumped out of bed for, so to speak, in terms of what kind of blew me away. But then again,
Bolt Hammer Traceless is really interesting. I think that's the thing. There's a lot of really interesting stuff in there, but you have to be a bit of a nerd for it. But Traceless is really interesting because they've spent a lot of time, and again, I watched a couple of their videos about it as well, working out a way of getting the contact angle down on their glass cleaner, which doesn't sound like, oh god, that's going to change the world. Let's cure world hunger.
It's all about wetting.
In terms of first world problems, if you've got a coated windscreen and you try and spray any normal glass cleaner on it, amazingly, it's very hydrophobic and it pushes it all away, so it doesn't actually get to do its job. Very irritating as well. It's a nice fresh coating, and you try and use your screen wash on there.
Yes,
Traceless aims to overcome that by being able to spread out with the wetting agents all over the surface. So very good.
It has a function.
Yeah. There are a couple of products as well we didn't feature for one reason or another.
Yeah, my favourite there was the 3D trim dressing. It was a ceramic. So 3D brought out the GLW range, which is their consumer range, and we tried their QD. And frankly, I prefer the beaded up, which is their non-consumer fancy range. So we kind of recommended just stick with beaded up.
But like you say, that whole range is very much aimed at
Americans.
Well, no, not even Americans, but consumers, but not consumers who are that into detailing it. There's a lot of buzzword bingo going on with it.
It was like Turtle Wax 2 years ago.
Exactly. So we haven't tested a bad product out of it per se, I don't think, but
the glass sealing wasn't amazing. But the annoying thing is the glass sealing on the one hand isn't amazing, but then the ceramic trim dressing was. I really liked how that went on, and that was some really crappy trim we tried it with. It was an interesting one. And then Visa had some stuff that we so nearly managed to knock out.
Oh, so irritating. So yes, Visa have got 2 new products coming in theory. They've got a pad cleaner. Spray-on pad cleaner, which is useful. So you want to clean out all your pads in between. You've got a spray-on version of that. You can work into it and make sure all of the chaff is out your pads before you use them next time. Great. No information on it. It doesn't actually exist at the moment. It's a CGI representation of what's going to exist sometime in the next sort of few months, maybe.
Yeah.
And they're also making changes to their pad range as well, changing over all of their pads to be this new thermofoam that is really good, but unfortunately that also means that all their nice budget economy pads, which are also very good pads but just don't have the thermo technology, are going to have a price bump, kind of taking away the point of them. So I don't know what they're playing over there, but
is thermo still new? I feel like it's been with us for long enough now that we just sort of refer to it as thermo.
No, thermo is fairly new still, because I think that's only been out for about 18 months or so.
Yeah. Fair dues.
And they have refreshed that thermo range as well since then. So
that's true. And then we got the Diamond Bright glass cleaner for RVs and stuff, and we really like the Diamond Bright glass cleaner, and we recognise it because it's got a very special smell, and the way it works is kind of, you can tell it, but it was basically the same as
it's the Diamond Bright glass cleaner.
Yeah.
They have a glass cleaner, and they've just added for RVs on the end of it.
Yeah. So
very good clean for RVs, but you can just find glass cleaner.
Use the car one buy in bulk. And then more interesting, I think, was the hardware side of things. We had some really quite sexy things there, and these are we'll take a little break after doing the hardware just to let you recover. But first up, there was a battery-powered full-size machine from Rupes at last. Ian, you had much playing sessions. I saw you putting your whole weight on a bonnet to see if you could stall it, which failed. And as in, you failed to stall it.
I failed a lot of things. Nothing new to add another one to the list. No. Had the new machines over from both Lake Country and from so from Rupes and from Lake Country. That's why I couldn't think of Lake Country and Lake Country. Hang on, that's no, from Rupes and from Lake Country. So from Rupes we had the new HLR15 and the 21 over, both running on 18 volts, 5 amp hour batteries, and cut to it, impressive. Very impressive. You know, you can tell that they are 4 years newer in terms of technology than the Flex machines. It really shows through. And if nothing else, Flex needs to get their act together and start looking at updating their machines, because otherwise Rupes are going to wipe the absolute floor with them, I think. With the UDOS, we didn't actually get a chance to try it.
No, so we had a 110 volt UDOS, and so you have to buy your own transformer like the old Porter cable days. But
until the 220 volts.
Until the 220, so the 220, 240 will come out. But as I say, we had this kind of pre-release thing, and someone who remained nameless, it wasn't one of us, managed to destroy the Amazon special transformer. So we had a kind of a look and touch, but don't kind of turn it on approach. It's kind of like...
Yeah, they've updated the switching mechanism, because it's now 3-in-1 rather than 5-in-1. It goes from rotary to 8mm to 15mm.
So they dumped 21 and 3mm.
Which is strange. I would have kept 15 and 21. Frankly, I would have gone away with the rotary as well. And gone like 12, 15, 21. But yeah, they have an 8mm there that apparently is for sanding, but the machine feels far too heavy for sanding from my eyes. But again, more really cool engineering stuff going on, and it is lighter than the other one. And
it's got knacker ducts. It's 100 grams lighter. It's a bit longer. I love the ducktail cable that goes up, so it goes straight over your shoulder.
There's been a lot of really cool little touches put on it.
Yes.
So you can see the amount of thought's gone into it. I think when we had Jay over last year for the podcast, earlier this year rather, for the podcast, there was kind of a discussion when I said, well, are you just going to make a simple machine? I think that's kind of where they need to go next, is just making a couple of standalone machines and then go, or you can have all three of these in one machine.
Maybe. I just know the cost of developing these things is huge, and there's no point developing what the likes of Flex and Rupes already do rather well. So a bit of sort of innovation and ingenuity I do appreciate. What I really like about Ludos in kind of existentially is it is designed with left hookers like myself in mind. So you can use, it's like with guns, is that you always learn how to use a gun, whether you're left or right-handed, in the same way. There are some very specialist left-handed guns, sort of brush loaders and stuff like that, but generally speaking, you just put up with it as a left hooker. You're a left-handed man in a right-handed man's world, and but finally we have a machine that we can use. So that's good.
I'm trying to see if I've got like a fireworks effect anyway. No, I've got an interlude button though, so let's use that.
I hope you're enjoying the Pro Detailer Magazine podcast. Just a little reminder, you can get your own copy of issue 18, i.e. what we're talking about, on pre-order if you go to www.prodetailermagazine.com. All orders received prior to 12 noon tomorrow, Thursday the 14th of December 2023, will be sent out just before Christmas. Any orders received after that will be sent out shortly after Christmas. Anyhow, back to the podcast.
And we're back, and we are talking about issue 18. And
we have tea now, so you might hear me slurping.
Yeah, we'll hear much slurping. This soundtrack to Ian's life. But the guide section was one that was really fun this time. And it kicks off with another trip down to the south coast, which I always enjoy doing. And we went with James at JDK to Marina. Aquamarina. And the element of boat detailing we're doing is teak decking, which sounds really niche because it's really niche. But the interesting thing is, because of TikTok and other nefarious powers in this world, people are doing it wrong and destroying teak decks, which can cost up to £120,000 on boats. And so things like pressure washing and heavy scrubbing and stuff is a bad idea for a real teak deck. So we give you everything you need to know about teak decks for that time when we all get our super yachts.
Also, Rolls-Royce.
Also Rolls-Royce. And wasn't there a pickup truck that had teak deck in the back of it?
Oh, there must be.
A fancy pants one. Anyway, yes, so teak, you read it and you'll know your stuff and become particularly interesting at dinner parties. And then we got on to the tip of the matter. And there's a bit of a history to this.
You laughed, I laughed. Yeah, just move on.
I was trying. So not that long ago, because I'm desperately trying to move on my manual Audi D2 S8. It is one of three cars, and at a very, very good value price, given how much has been spent on the car. I was trying to clean the exhaust, and I was really struggling, which is weird because I have everything. It's exhausting. Hey! Oh, come on, press a button for that. Yeah, that'll do. Anyway, and I was struggling. I was trying everything, Kronos from Labo, which is a decarbonizer, and various sort of wheel cleaners and metal polishes and drills and all sorts. So I thought, let's do something on exhaust tips. Meanwhile, little did I know that Ian was trying to push on his little A-Class Mercedes AMG, not AMG, and he was...
Engineered by.
He was polishing his tips on that, and apparently it was very satisfying.
And sold the bloody cars.
Yeah.
Better than you.
Just more estate agents than there are connoisseurs. But the upshot was that he thought, let's do something on exhaust tips. So we both...
To be fair, I spent probably 2 or 3 hours just going through the motions of getting all this old carbon off and everything like that, and really successful, and polished everything up and put them back on the car. And I went, shit, I really should have photographed some of that.
Yeah. I did have a similar thing, but I'm glad I didn't because I basically failed. So I went down to Devon and picked up another S8 exhaust because I thought it might be specific. So it's got a stainless steel kind of almost billet, probably not, tip trim, so to speak, on the back, which is welded onto the back of D2s to the point where the whole exhaust is one piece from factory. And if you want to change the back box, you actually have to cut it and then there are special brackets that Audi provide at vast expense for you to reconnect it. But anyway, so I found another of those at the lovely D2 Doctors and brought that down. And then we had, you had a Bimmer in, didn't you, for a bit of fluffing?
Yeah, no, one of my customers had a E46 that is lovingly restored and taken care of for far too much money, but everyone's got to have an obsession. But his tips were in need of buffing.
And you no,
but they'd had a good 20 odd years worth of carbon build up on them, and this is one of the things we were looking at. What can you do on the car, and what can you do if you've got these removable tips? So the Mercedes had them. You had to undo a couple of star nuts, and you can just pull them off. BMWs have them. They're on shims, and there's no screws on them. My old A5 had them, and we actually took them off when we did issue 11 when we were doing that refurb on the A5. So the upshot of being able to take them off is I wanted to see what effect an ultrasonic cleaner would have on them, because effectively if you can shake all this carbon off using something like a carburetor cleaner, something like that, and if that's incredibly efficient, we wanted to know about it. So yeah, tried. We ended up doing in 2 stages. So we wanted to see what we could do with. Admittedly, we took the car off of your exhaust to start with because it was just easier. Had the exhaust on some stands and went through using strong hydrochloric wheel acid and a Kronos, a decarbonizer from Laboratory Medical called Kronos, and compared what results we could get, showed the upshots and downfalls of each, and added in some sort of drill brushes in, and just sort of how far can we push these. Then we switched over to the tips and showed what you can do with, say, both the carburetor cleaner and Kronos, not only within the ultrasonic machine for the carburetor cleaner, but using Kronos with a little bit of heat because it's a heated ultrasonic cleaner and ultrasonic, and it was quite drastic some of the results we got, and how it just shows how much this ultrasonic cleaner could potentially add. I think the cleaner was only about 80 odd quid.
Yeah, we bought
the
it.
Machine.
I can't remember. We bought it for a megatest.
I can't remember what we bought it for either. We ended up using. I think the only time we ever actually used it in the magazine was when we were doing the interior parts on your Subaru, and I started chucking loads of bits through it, and it was really good at getting the grot out. That was just with a sort of an APC type cleaner in the tank.
Yes. Now since then, it's been sitting in my in the PDH.
It's been floating in your garage.
Floating there. But more importantly, just a bit of a safety warning from first-hand experience. So even if you turn the heat off on an ultrasonic cleaner, it still heats it because of all the vibrations and stuff like that. Now, I'm of the old school, so I generally feel that brake cleaner can do everything and anything. It'll solve everything from, diseases to divorce. It'll do everything,
and it will,
and it can.
like the genie, it will give you your wish, perhaps not in the way you intend it though.
Yes. So if you have an ultrasonic cleaner and you have brake cleaner, do not combine the two. Trust me on this. Brake cleaner has a very low flash point, so it will go bang at relatively low temperatures.
It's not even that; it's the phosgene gas that's released by brake cleaner, and I think it gases off at something like, I can't remember if it's 90 degrees or 130 degrees, which is why you should never use brake cleaner on hot brakes, because I think it's as low as 4 parts per million is terminal.
Right.
Yes,
to humans.
Yes, to lungs.
Even to birds.
Yes, into your lungs, your Marlboro-soaked lungs.
Benson Hedges, thank you very much.
I've spoken for years. I don't need. I can ignore a bit of exhaust gas.
I had Benson's special filter back in the day, but we're not promoting smoking. It's very bad. We both vape now.
So yeah, whatever you do, don't take advice from Bert on using brake cleaner.
Yes, don't do take my advice when I say use brake cleaner, but not in a ultrasonic cleaner, because you can get bang bangs. Anyway, moving rapidly on from explosions, we did Chemistry Corner. Well, you did Chemistry Corner on SLS, sodium lauryl sulfate.
Yes, and it's one of those chemicals that's in so many of the products we use, and we don't really know that much about it. So it was just breaking down what it is, what it does, what the alternatives are, dangers, and the benefits that it gives you. There's a really nice little experiment in there just to show the basically what wetting agents are, and that's one of the functions of SLS is a wetting agent, and how that's used to increase efficiency in a shampoo, for example. So rather than just beading up all over the top of your protected car, it will actually wet itself out and spread over, a little bit like we were talking about earlier with the Bill Hamburg Traceless. Yeah, and it's just a way you can visualise that yourself at home if you so wish, with only Blue Peter badge.
Yeah, and again, more first aid material. We are providing everything the new romantic would need, really.
Oh, it does lubrication.
It does. And then we had a monster article on green detailing. So detailing in an environmentally conscious way, and this was I say a team effort. We spread our wings and made contacts and talked to cleverer people than us and various manufacturers who are doing varying levels from providing sort of refillable bottles, which is great, and stuff from concentrates, great, and using recyclable plastic, which is good, or plastic that's already been recycled, which is better. And even one company, and I'm trying to remember whether it was Maldeep or Gloss Fuel, I think it was Maldeep, had recycled loo paper and used biodegradable labels and tape.
Yeah, and that's Maldeep. They've gone quite deep in it at their HQ. They've got solar panels everywhere and recycled boxes. They're recycling as much as they can. It's a good aim. You know, we are by no means tree huggers here.
But we have an electric car.
Yes, but even less so than I.
See polar bears every day of my life.
But no, it's almost got to the stage where there are fewer and fewer excuses for manufacturers not to take environmentally friendly routes to their packaging, to their distribution, to just how they put their stuff together. You see a lot of I've seen a couple of manufacturers bring out glass bottled products which they've tried to label up as environmentally friendly, but then you find out that it's actually more energy intensive to recycle glass than it is to make new out of silicon, which is everywhere.
And it's heavy, so transport. And so we've been looking at the whole kind of carbon footprint of everything. And also we've given you some tips on how you can reduce your things, so little things that you might not have realised. So, for example, per minute of usage, you use less water using a typical pressure washer than you do just using your garden hose. So, use pressure washers, not hoses. Yeah,
it's not trying to guilt you into feeling bad for the environment. It's just general information that you can use to maybe make the odd little change you probably won't even notice that cumulatively can make quite a big effect.
Yeah, I think just by researching it, I'm going to be pressure hosing instead of using the garden hose to water the plants. I'm going to be using the pressure hose now. It's going to be a good idea, I'm sure. But moving on from horticultural destruction, we did a celebrity interview, a detailing celebrity interview, somebody who I did an interview with him on camera back in 2017 or 18, but finally we've got him in print, and he's
absolutely fascinating bloke as well.
Yes, genuinely really, really interesting, and I put him in the kind of the same level as your Mike Phillips sort of thing, and it is Jason Rose. So Jason was previously Maguire's for many, many years, ran his own detailing company that actually paid for him to go through college and all sorts. And of late, I say of late, for really quite a long time, he's worked for Rupes and was instrumental in setting up Rupes USA. And he's got lots of really interesting things to say and lots of tips and advice for those wanting to go pro, and also just sort of general life advice in some cases. So that was a fascinating article, and a big thanks to Jason for taking the time. When we do these, we get in contact with people and we send over the questions and ask them to fill out answers, and Jason went above and beyond in terms of creating really nice, expansive, far-reaching and engaging answers. So that was awesome.
It's the sign of somebody that's interesting to talk to, somebody that respects other people wanting to know about them.
Oh, I think it's my favourite article in this issue, I have to admit. It's fascinating. We did, and again, we wanted to just sort of zip through this lot, otherwise it's going to be a very long podcast indeed. But we did an article on AI.
Aye.
And there's a little twist at the end of it, which we won't give away, but it's entertaining.
Is it?
Yeah, I thought so.
I wrote that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well.
No, again, it's touching a little bit on AI. And, oh god, I saw a post earlier this week. I think it was about somebody complaining about how all these bloody internet articles are just written by fake AI generation now. And yeah, okay, but most of the stuff you read online, you're not actually paying for. And for the majority of these articles, they're there to increase their company's SEO presence and relatability and. I think it's the authority.
Authority is a significant thing, yes.
So they're not necessarily things that you would expect people to deep dive down in and read and take as biblical fact. But if you're trying to, for example, create some back-end content for your website, if you're trying to make your social media posts a little bit more interesting and don't want to pay a professional hundreds and hundreds of pounds to basically rewrite copy for you, AI can be really useful, and its potential for future is quite astonishing, really. You can be at the stage where you're spending less time answering the generic queries, if you like, from customers by your AI learning your existing responses and able to respond to how much is how much.
Well, exactly. A chatbot doesn't get impatient and angry with people who just say, how much, how much?
And chatbots aren't, chatbots have historically been really irritating when you're trying to get in touch with your bank or something like that. But the technology is evolving so quickly. A couple of years ago, I think it was about 2019, 2020, Google released a version of their AI that was able to phone and book a
restaurant,
a reservation at a Chinese restaurant, which in a very unracist way.
Oh God,
I'm not a racist, but no, but
I want lower bunk.
It wasn't the easiest conversation to understand both ways. So the fact that the AI managed to adapt to questions asked in a way that perhaps wouldn't have been asked by a native speaker shows the amount of learning and research that's gone into building these things.
And they're not mimics. That's the problem I have. If I'm ever talking to somebody with an accent, then I accidentally start mimicking their accent.
I had my hand over a button when we were talking about the Irish article there. I'm just waiting. I was waiting for this to go. See, I'm not going to do it either.
So yeah, AI's got potential, and don't write it off just as something to make kind of CGI style Lego images of cars, which is what seems to be plaguing my Facebook feed at the moment. This moves on to a brief history of Dr. Beasley's, which is a brand over in the States, and it lets us know how it kind of started and matured, and it's an interesting company that has an interesting backstory.
I've never understood how they're not bigger over here, because they've got some really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think
they've always been around.
Nobody's just imported them, I think.
Admittedly, I think that one of the contacts we've had with them when we did our leather megatest ages ago. And because they are not big over here, they're not really on our radar. And we had so many other
contestants.
Many other contestants in there. We kind of missed off Dr. Beasley's. And I think we had a message from them saying, "Oh, we'd have liked to be involved in this." And I'm like, So I don't think they have a UK distributor.
No, I have to admit,
I see them every now and then, but I think they're directly imported by individual resellers. But I could be wrong. Don't sue me.
Not again. So anyway, that's interesting. It broadens one's horizons, and obviously we are truly international magazine, so we like to feature all around the world. And then I've got here Marrow Arabia, which is Martin Barrow went to Arabia, and so we have a...
Sounds like a children's story.
It does.
So Martin went to Arabia and got a camel.
Which he did. So Martin, we've known him for years and years. He's a well-known, respected detailer in the UK, and he basically got an opportunity to set up a business out in Abu Dhabi. I say that slowly, not simply because I'm trying to remember if it was Abu Dhabi or Dubai or Arabia.
I can't remember the name.
Riyadh. There you go. Didn't they do football-y things there or Olympic-y things? You're the sports fan.
Sure.
Okay. But anyway, he went there, and this is a story of all that kind of happened, and you know, he's literally, as of, I think, a couple of weeks ago, actually got over there. So this was the lead up to it, and it's a kind of Dear Diary thing. We will hear from him in future issues, I am sure, and how he's getting along. And then that brings us nicely into the wellness section, which is a bumper wellness session this time.
Yeah, we missed it out for the last couple, just because we kind of didn't want to write anything without authority when it comes to wellness. So we've been looking for specialists to write some bits and pieces for us, and we found them.
Yeah, they and it was great actually, because the other side is we didn't want to repeat, because it can get a bit repetitive. You're talking about mental health. That's a big topic, but we've been able to focus that down with an article on ADHD in this issue, which was fascinating and close to your hearts. Whereas we've got a proper Merker, from what I know, in fact, a proper kind of therapist who knows all about it with first-hand experience and stuff like that. So that was really, really interesting. And then one on burnout, which is written by a detailer that I've known for many years. It's anonymous, but it's a very personal first-hand account of the last 4 or 5 years. And I think it's something that we can all kind of learn from and appreciate. So it's an article well worth reading, particularly for professionals. And then the final section in there was actually originally going to be part of the Green article, but that just got so huge. We talked to Andreas Neuner, who is the chemist, the boffin, also the doctor of neurogenetic something or others from Nanolex. And he's a very cool guy. And he kindly answered lots of our questions on chemical safety with a view both to human health, but also to environmental kind of health and safety, which doesn't sound super exciting, but trust me, it is. If you wanted to make some of the most poisonous chemicals in the world, just read this and do that. Very straightforward.
It's exciting to know which bits not to drink.
Yeah.
So it's always good knowledge to have tucked away in the back of your noggin.
It is, I mean, my default is always try it and see what happens.
Toluene. Spicy.
Potassium cyanide. So we do that, and then the final kind of bit of the Trader Talk section is on branding, which is an article that has this is an in-joke. They're not very funny, but basically Ian wrote this article about 3 years ago. And it's been our kind of we've wanted to get it into the mag every single time, and then for whatever reason there's not space. But this time an advertiser who will remain nameless completely let us down, along both with editorial side, and we were screwed. So we put it in, and finally it's got an airing, and it's a hilarious article. I know it doesn't sound it, but trust me, it's got some cool kind of graphics in where we've kept the colour scheme of a particular brand, but then changed.
I think hilarious is a little bit of a stretch for it.
There's a low bar at the moment. It's December. Yeah. So it's a fun article, well worth reading, and we're just very glad to finally get it.
A little bit about colour psychology, and it's one that's very good for professionals and their companies as well. When you're actually designing things out, try not to have the traditional white and red with a car silhouettes.
Well, funny you say that. We've also been working on something called Detailer Directory, and which has brought us into exposure with literally 1,500 valeting company logos. So we've started.
Worth mentioning, if you're a professional, go and look up your company and make sure you sign up on it.
Yeah.
It's free.
And many of you will already have a profile there. You need to claim it because we built it. And if you don't, then you can create it. But do check for your own first. Use your postcode to find yourself.
Very zen.
Very zen, isn't it? Which brings us on to the MT.
That it does.
It does. So... Well,
God, I've not been looking forward to doing this mega test.
No, this is why I wanted to do tar removers. It would have been easier.
It's so boring, tar removers.
I quite like tar removers solvents for.
Yeah, but they're very binary at the end of the day. They either work or they don't work, and they either fuck up something or they don't fuck up something. So, no, we finally pulled out the stops because we were originally going to do this a couple of years ago, wheel cleaners. And we were in contact with Castle Combe the kind of arrangement was that they would go without washing their, was it 10, what were they? Vauxhalls?
There was something kind of, maybe MX-5s. Something that basically the track experience cars.
I'm sure they were hatchbacks. They were going to not wash their wheels off for, I think it was like 2 months or something like that, and we were going to go down there en masse. We were going to test all of these, and they'd be roughly the same, because that's the problem with doing these tests, is finding some way of getting consistent subjects to test them on, because you only got a choice of 4 wheels on a standard car. It's very difficult to find cars that are all doing exactly the same thing for the same amount of time that you can reliably test against. So this meant that anyway, that fell through. But so when we finally came around to doing wheel cleans this time, we had to be a little bit of a dictatorship with what we were going to enter, which you'll notice that we didn't put out a big, what's your favourite wheel cleaner? on social media as we would normally do for the megatests.
I did on my OnlyFans, but
to be fair, and this was so that we could control the entrance, but not so we put sort of favourites forward, but so we got a good mix from across the board of different chemistry-based cleaners. Looking into what's actually out there in the world, I think we've tracked down SDS sheets, which are surprisingly difficult to come across for wheel cleaners these days.
Yeah,
out in the wild.
I have to admit, it is disappointing how few manufacturers are making them easily available. And again, I would congratulate, frankly, Ultimate Finish as a reseller, because they make all, and others may do this, but I haven't seen it, make all of the SDSs available on their website for everything they sell, which is
one thing that I think all retailers need to follow in the footsteps of. It's you need to be able to access that information to make an informed decision, frankly. So we tracked down 50 odd popular wheel cleaners around the world and looked at the base chemistry behind them, and basically showed that there were three main ingredients, active ingredients, if you like, across the wheel cleaners, with a few sort of outliers, some using some very strange and potent chemicals, some using sulfuric acid in theirs.
And also some were using the same chemical under a different name.
Yes, again, another thing with SDS is there's so much, especially coming out of the States, there's so many companies putting their SDS out there with fake names or trade secret attached to it, not telling you that, for example, it's got sodium hydroxide in a ridiculous quantity in there, and because they're not telling the pH as well. And it gets very difficult to make these informed choices. So we gathered together a selection of different cleaners. We teamed up with Steve of Geeky Detail Reviews, who has probably more experience testing at least the consumer market, if not a wider range of cleaners than we have.
Well, he's a massive wheelophile.
He does like his wheels. And I think he said he's tested about 80 in the last couple of years. So that's a pretty broad selection for him to make his choice of three cleaners from. So kind of cuts through the competition. These have already been tested. I already know these are the best ones I've tested comparably, so that's his three. Originally, Bert, you were going to be choosing some of our favourites that we've tested over the last few issues, but that changed to...
Well, we saw a pattern, and basically we realised that half of us kind of ones we talked about were what we call trade favourites, and the other half were kind of, I wouldn't say traditional favourites. So ones that I chose were ones I've used kind of many times before in different situations, and that I just knew were different and good. So there were some replacements. So Yellow Mellow was the old Dodo Juice one, and that's obviously no longer with us, tragically. So I used Deep Purple, which is their replacement for it, and that was kind of the input.
But it's not a direct replacement, because one thing yours all had in common was they were combined fallouts.
Indeed.
Which is very difficult to find a wheel cleaner nowadays that isn't combined with a fallout remover.
True, and there's a balance between the amount of wheel cleaning, the amount of fallout removing, and all the other aspects of them. So we had Dodo, Megs, and what was the last one? That's how tired I am.
Well, Halfords.
Yes, Halfords Advance.
Yeah, which came very highly recommended from Steve originally.
Yes, indeed. That's one that I hadn't. And it was the first Halfords Advance we got in there. And I've seen lots of things online about people, it's all going to be rubbish sort of thing. Hell no. They sell more car care product to the public than anyone else in this country. And they've got the knowledge of what people want, and they've got the resources to develop it or pay someone to develop it. So from my book, I would be looking very closely at what Halfords are able to produce.
In fact, I think Halfords have got that knowledge by buying in brands, seeing what sells, and then copying their chemistry. But we're not going to go into that now. We're not going into that now. How big to prison cell do you want?
I'm not worried about me.
The final three were the ones I put forward, and I tried to take a harsher end of the scale, going from getting more...
Harsher? You were positively atomic.
Yeah, no, well, one of the things that worked. So I put forward Autosmart Smart Wheels for the extremely alkaline section. Autoglim, Autoglim
acid wheel cleaner,
which is hydrochloric acid, and something a little bit gentler, as it were, but that's always had a good following between consumers and professionals alike, which is Bilberry from Valet Pro.
Yeah, careful, because there are a couple of people. I think Angel Wax do a Bilberry too,
Yes.
and a couple other companies do. So yeah, the Valet Pro one, which I've used for yonks, and it just gets the job done, doesn't it?
So, yeah, those are our contestants in there. We ran them through a series of little tests indoors just to see what the characteristics of them are, how they react to paint, how they react to bare metal, so we could take that into our assessment. And then you went outside with Steve with gloves on.
Yeah, started to have a bit of a squirtathon. And Steve brought along, he's got this massive T5 or 6, I don't know, VAG van, basically, with monstrous big wheels. I didn't know he was a drug dealer, but, And so we kind of divided the wheels up, did some spraying, some testing, some swipe testing. I brought along my equally as manly bright red Ford Fiesta van, and we did the same on that. And then a couple of weeks beforehand, Ian and I had shifted down to a breaker's yard and nicked some wheels off a BMW, as is traditional. And one of those wheels was kind of Godzilla of wheels. It was absolutely terrible. It looks like somebody had run without brake pads for quite a while.
Or something was seized on or something like that. And there's a photo of it on social media if you'd seen it.
Sort of thing happens in BMW after a couple of months of ownership.
We put that wheel onto, our socials just to see what would you use to get rid of this and to sort of clean this up. And the responses ranged from, some really harsh
to fire.
cleaners, to, just get them refurbished. Well, that's not really the fucking point, is it? Bell end. That's why I hate social media. That wasn't the question. Go and sit at the back of the room. No, turn around in the cupboard. Send in the headmaster. Oh, sorry, this is your. I've been hanging around you too long.
But in fairness, the best way to solve it would have been a refurb. But the answer is that we came to a conclusion that we're not going to give away those conclusions, but they're interesting and not what you expect. I can guarantee that.
If you read our megatest before, we don't look to automatically find the best product and name it and give it a trophy or anything like that. We try to give you the data to make your own choices based on the situations you're in, and this kind of takes that to another level.
Yeah. I mean, we're really explaining the science. And in a way, we kind of give you the equipment to be able to, or the knowledge, so to speak, to make your own decision, even if you're not using any of the one products that we've actually been featured in this megatest. So quite sort of I quite liked it, to be honest, overall. Still want to do tile remover at some point because I love all the solvents.
You can do that on your own with your own magazine.
Yeah, I do.
In your spare time.
In my spare time. Okay. Well, we are very close to wrapping up. The final article is the showcase, which was done by Daniela Tao of Wash and Gloss, who's down on the south coast. I want to say Brighton, but it might be Hove, but it might be Chichester. So somewhere on the south coast.
Aren't two of those the same place?
I don't really know. I'm not familiar with that.
I thought Brighton and Hove was just kind of general. But,
I think there's definitely a Hove and there's definitely a Brighton.
Chichester's a bit further along.
Chichester is a bit further along, yeah. But anyway, down there, and it was a Sirocco that the owner had bought and sort of started modifying a bit, and paint was on his list, and he was in a car park, and somebody sidled up to him and said, I'll tell you what, £100 and I'll give your car a rub, give it a polish. And he thought, that's a great idea. And so that happened, and the car didn't survive well, so it was down to Danny to basically fix it up, and there's kind of a moral lesson to it, as well as a very shiny V-dub at the end of it, so that's a kind of interesting little read at the end. But yeah, so that's issue 18. Just to give you the lowdown,
That was very unenthusiastic. So, that's issue 18, I guess. I don't know why we're in Birmingham for unenthusiastic. Want to magazine, you must read it, or don't.
Well, anyway, it is available to pre-order, but the pre-orders are stopping on Thursday, which is tomorrow, which is the...
Assuming I get this out tonight, really.
It is really, yeah, but is the 14th tomorrow?
Yes.
I've been on a diet, and every day...
Yes, it is. Tomorrow is the 14th.
And that's how I know what date it is.
Probably around about midday we're going to have to close off pre-orders, and after that you are more than likely going to be waiting until the new year to receive it.
Yes, because I'm working over Christmas, so I'm not able to, as in not at this, so I'm not going to be able to do all the shipping and stuff like that.
We'll get everything out before Christmas that we can, but just postage, that's how it works, unfortunately. That's why you shouldn't privatise the bloody Royal Mail.
100% agreed. But anyway, before we get into politics, the magazine is available for pre-order on the website, prodetailermagazine.com, or have a look at our social media, lots of links.
We will have some new hats as well at some point.
Oh, yes. I'm looking
when
forward
they're
to
actually arriving.
Beanie hats, yeah.
They'll be coming out.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Keep it on social. We'll put it out when they're out.
Indeed. But anyway, in the meantime, thank you very much for listening, and we hope to come back with a podcast next year, a new series, and we will be in touch soon. So it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Say goodbye, dogs.
Woof.
They're all asleep.